Let's set those Week 17 lineups next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Dave Richard, and we're here to set your Week 17 lineups. But first, Dave, why don't you tell the audience who, I know people look forward to this every year, who's your good luck waiver wire ad? It's Week 17. You're trying to win a championship. You want some good juju on your bench. Who are you looking to add?
So this started a long time ago when we started putting Tim Tebow on our benches, figuring, we've got this, angel from heaven on earth that can help our fantasy teams, bring us some good karma, a little extra luck, and it's communal. It's something we can all do together. And so I thought about all the different players that could bring us good luck, and I just kept going back to one player who everybody was bummed for when he got hurt. And if there's anybody that deserves to win a championship in some form or fashion in 2023, I think it's this guy. So if you can get him off the waiver wire, pick him up, put him on your bench for good luck. Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns is the good luck player for 2023.
All right, let's get that good karma going with Nick Chubb on our benches. And let's move on to some of the Week 17 start-sit calls. But first, we're going to talk about some news that came out on today's Wednesday, right? This Week 17 falling the same week as Chris. It's throwing me off. It is Wednesday as we're talking, Thursday as you're listening for most of you. And Russell Wilson was benched. It's Derek Carr from last year all over again. It doesn't necessarily mean Russell Wilson won't be the quarterback for the Broncos, but Russell Wilson's probably not going to be their quarterback for the Denver Broncos next year. Yeah. Jarrett Stidham starting for the versus the Chargers. No Courtland Sutton at practice on Wednesday as they open the week. He is recovering from that concussion. Is the Broncos offense just a complete stay away, even against a great matchup?
I hesitate a little bit. I think it really depends on your circumstance. Mm-hmm. We know it's a three-headed backfield. We know that there's no Courtland Sutton. We can't trust Jerry Jeudy. So really what's left? I guess it is a stay away. I will say this. I think Jarrett Stidham offers some potential as a super flex or as a QB2 in a 2 QB league. And so if you're playing for a fantasy championship and, you might be without Trevor Lawrence this week, maybe you've just been streaming quarterbacks all the way, I think Stidham can be okay. I can't get out of my head what he did late last year against the 49ers, but he had Devontae Adams, and he doesn't have anybody quite like that now. And I don't think this offense would be as pass-focused with Stidham as the Raiders were late last year. For the most part, we're staying away from these Broncos.
We've got a couple of guys who have been QB2s for at least some of us. I know I had Sam Howell in the Scott Fish Bowl. He's not going to be starting this week. Jacoby Brissett starting ahead of him. And Tommy DeVito, who I was starting in one of our Superflex leagues, will also not start for the Giants. Tyrod Taylor will be starting ahead of him. And like you mentioned, I'm thinking we probably won't have Trevor Lawrence this week. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. And this is one of those situations where if he had just missed one game back in like 11th grade and didn't have this I've never missed a start in my entire life thing going, he'd probably sit out this game. But he's got this streak going. He doesn't want to break it. He's going to do what he can to fight through it. There have been a couple situations this season already where it seemed like Trevor Lawrence probably shouldn't have been playing, and he's played through them. So I can't say he's not going to play, but I'm at least preparing for C.J. Beathard to be the starting quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. Let's move on to some of those start-sit calls, and we're going to start with one that I think is legitimately pretty tough on Thursday night. Joe Flacco has been really quite solid for the Cleveland Browns. They've been throwing a lot. He's putting up big numbers. But he's got the Jets this week. Could you actually start Joe Flacco this week?
I don't have him as a top 12 quarterback, Chris. I like C.J. Stroud better. I like Derek Carr better. Baker Mayfield is better. Jordan Love. Matthew Stafford. Been asked about Stafford versus Flacco. To me, that's a no-brainer. I think he can have some success, but I'm thinking that this is a game where he won't have to throw 40 times. Yeah. He can probably get away with fewer of those deep throws. And against the Jets, that's probably a good idea. I know that Jalen Waddle had a big hitter against DJ Reed 2 games ago. So maybe it's possible that Amari Cooper cashes in on one of those. But I think when you play the Jets, you attack the middle of the field. And that's where I would expect Flacco to go here. And that's going to be good for David Njoku. I think Njoku comes through with a monster game. And Joe Flacco probably disappoints a little bit. He's been at least 20 fantasy points each of 4 starts. It would not surprise me if he had 20 on the dot against the Jets in the short week game. But I don't see him having the same type of upside as we saw against the Texans defense that was just beaten up by injury, and their pass rush has not been great all year.
You've got to start Amari Cooper, right?
Number 2 receiver, yes.
Now,
Breece Hall is a number 2 running back.
Here's a similar spot. Obviously, Amari Cooper's been better than George Pickens for much of the season, but George Pickens, if you had him in your lineup last week, way to go. What a call, because you got a huge performance from him that was very unexpected. Can he follow it up? Is he worth chasing coming off that 2-touchdown, 195-yard game?
If we're going to call him a number 3 receiver, then I would say yes, he is worth chasing. If we're going to expect him to have almost 200 yards again, the answer is no. Listen, I think this is going to be a competitive game between the Steelers and the Seahawks. I think Seattle's run defense has really been worn down as the season's gone on. I think the Steelers will try and attack that, but Mason Rudolph has eyes downfield. And I think that's the thing that really helps Pickens more so than Deontay Johnson, because when Johnson played with Kenny Pickett and with Mitchell Trubisky, those guys weren't necessarily challenging downfield. Mason Rudolph, that's almost a specialty, is to go after those throws 15-plus yards down the field. And so I would expect that to kind of help Pickens a little bit. And I don't mind ranking him as a number 3 wide receiver this week. Maybe he can come through. I think a safer floor is better than the floor he's had going into last week, which was maybe 8 or 9 PPR points. I think it's 10 or 11 moving forward with Rudolph.
All right, that's going to do it for FFT and 5. We'll see you tomorrow.